So hello everyone, today we are going to analyze Economic Survey 2020-2021. Now I have twofold objective in bringing you this series of lectures for Economic Survey. The primary objective is to help you understand what is happening in the economy, the global economy and the Indian economy in the context of COVID. And the second most important objective is to help you get equipped so that you can answer all the questions in civil services examination. So these are the twofold objectives that I have in mind when I was framing this lecture for you. Now this is Economic Survey 2021. You know that it has two volumes, volume 1 and volume 2. See, that's volume 1, volume 2. Now if you look at volume 1, what's the difference between these two volumes? First let's understand that. Look at volume 1. So volume 1 would talk about challenges of policy making and tools to solve the challenges. I'll give you an example. So for example, COVID is not a normal situation. The world has never faced something called as COVID. Now since COVID is new, it's a new challenge. Hence, we need new solutions, new mechanisms to tackle the problems that COVID has started to show. All right. So first, what are the challenges that the economy is facing because of COVID and a new situation? So those challenges are mentioned in volume 1 and tools to solve them. So every problem has a solution. Whether you succeed or not, that's a different thing. But those solutions are being proposed in volume 1. In volume 2, the economic survey talks about different sectors of the economy. For example, agriculture, industries, services, banking, different sectors. So it gives an account of what is happening in each sector. Plus, it also tells you that what the policy makers of India expect each sector to behave in the coming year. All right, so these are the two things given in volume 2. These are volume 1 and 2. Now, what I have done for you is, I have done something, different. So, volume 1, I'm talking about volume 1. Volume 1 has 10 chapters. I'm not going to follow the sequence of economic survey because economic survey is not written for a general mass. So what I'll do is I'll convert it into a document which you can easily understand as well as apply it in answering questions in the exam. And to be able to do that, I have reshuffled the chapters a bit. So I'm dividing economic survey into 3 parts. Part A, B and C, economic survey volume 1. I'll talk about volume 2 in the next lecture. When I start doing volume 2, I'll talk about it. So in part A, I'm going to cover these chapters. In part B, we will be covering these chapters in the sequence that I have mentioned. And in part C, we'll be doing the chapters in this particular sequence. See, sequencing is important because what I have done is I have taken, so for example, when we are doing chapter 1, if I felt that there was something mentioned in part C which is important for part 1, part A, I have taken those points from here to here. Plus, along with what is mentioned in the survey by Government of India, I have given my own inputs in every chapter. So, if you are watching my lecture here, make sure that you follow this sequence of chapters. And in fact, this sequence will help you answer questions also. Alright, so today we are going to do this one. It's a very important topic. Alright, so let me first introduce you something related to economic survey. Now guys, I'm going to tell you something very interesting about Indian economy. People say that because of COVID, our GDP fell down and it's crashed actually, which led India into a technical recession. Now this is true, but this is not 100% correct. I'll tell you why. So look at this graph. If you see here, this is 2017. From 2017 onwards only, which is towards the end of 2017, what happened is our GDP started to slow down, see. Now when COVID pandemic struck the global economy as well as Indian economy, our GDP actually crashed and India went into technical recession. But this did not start in 2019 or 2020. This already started towards the end of 2017. The slowdown had already started, which means that when pandemic hit us, we were already having GDP slowdown. So you must keep that in mind. The pandemic actually accentuated it. It increased it further. All right, so that's important. Now, what is the theme of this year's economic survey? The theme of this year's economic survey is saving lives and livelihood. Very, very important theme. See, why the economic survey talks about this particular theme? Because when COVID pandemic hit us, there were two things in mind of the policymakers. First, we have to save human lives. Human lives are precious. And the second thing was we have to save the economy as well. But sometimes what happens is in policy making, you have to sacrifice something to achieve something else. That is the trade-off that the economic survey is talking about. That which should be given more importance, saving lives or saving livelihood. So that's the theme, that's the conflict that the survey talks about. Now, the economic survey says that there is a conflict between saving lives and livelihood. If you look at it, when the COVID started, there was a conflict. What to do? Whether to focus on human lives or whether to focus on economy. And why did this conflict arise? So which strategies to choose? What to do? Save lives or save the economy? Now, why was there a problem? The problem was because this pandemic was new. This was something very new. It happened for the first time. Nobody knew anything about it. Second is case fatality rate, CFR unknown. What is case fatality rate? So guys, suppose there are 100 patients, or rather there are, let's say, 100 patients detected with COVID. All right. Suppose these are the patients who are showing symptoms of COVID. Out of these 100 patients, let's say that 20 patients actually lost their life. All right. So we would say that case fatality rate is equal to 20%. So out of total detected cases, what is the proportion of patients who lost their life because of COVID? So this is case fatality rate. So case fatality rate was unknown because we had no idea about who is having the disease, and we were having no idea about how many people are losing lives initially. Now why? Because initially there were many asymptomatic cases. Those patients who were not showing any symptoms. So that was very dangerous. Then there is something called as reproduction rate, R0, which was unknown. I'll give you an example of what is the meaning of reproduction rate. So guys, suppose there is this guy. Suppose this person has COVID. All right. Now suppose this person travels in a metro train in Delhi, which means he will come in contact with many people now. He will come in contact with so many people. So if this person has COVID, if he comes in contact with 3 people, these 3 people have a very high chance of contracting COVID. They might be infected. So what do you mean by reproduction rate? Reproduction rate here in case of COVID or a disease which is transmitted means that if one person has it, how many persons is he going to infect? That is called as reproduction rate. So if one person infects 3 people, reproduction rate 3. All right. So this was unknown. We had no idea. Why? Because the symptoms were not very evident. We did not know what the symptoms are, and sometimes the symptoms were not even showing. So these were the problems. Now peak time and level unknown. This was another problem. What do you mean by peak time and level? So for example, suppose that COVID has just started, just struck the society and the country and the world. Now the number of COVID cases are rising, but we had no idea initially that what is the rate of increase of COVID cases, because we did not know R0, we did not know CFR. These two were unknown. So we were not knowing that if today one patient has COVID, what is that time when it will reach its peak, which means let's say that India has a population of 133 crores. And we expect that, let's say, 60 crore is the peak, which means COVID will start to come down only when 60 crore people are infected. So initially we had no idea how many people are going to be infected, how much time is it going to take to reach the peak, because once a disease reaches the peak, only then it comes down. We had no idea about what is happening. All right, so this is another problem, peak time and level unknown. Now impact of health benefits of various strategies unknown. So initially, for example, the government of India and the government across the world, they said that let us go for lockdown. Let us, use hand washing methods. Let us use masks. But initially we had no sanitization. We had no idea if these things are going to work or not. Now that was another problem. Now, these are health related issues. But government of India and people across the world, governments across the world, they adopted some methods like sanitization, mask and everything. So we had no idea if they will help us to contain the impact on health. All right, so we had no idea on about the impact on health. Plus, we also did not have any idea about the impact of these steps that we were taking, like lockdown, like social distancing, like quarantine. We had no idea initially about their impact on the economy. This was another problem. Okay, now another problem is, so if you look at these 7 points, these 7 points tell you that ultimately we had to make a choice that we want to take these steps and we want to come up with things like lockdown and save lives, or we want to take care of the economy. But the government of India said that life is more precious. Even at the cost of losing some GDP, what we decided at that time was a stringent lockdown, which many countries did not do. But India did stringent lockdown for 40 days non-stop. So that is what we decided. So there was a conflict that we want to save life or the economy. We went ahead and we took some steps to save life first. That is what the economic survey says. All right. So this was the dilemma that the government faced. Okay. Now, if I have to give an overview of what was happening in the economy, so let's see what the overview looks like. So this is an overview of the entire economic survey in words. So what was the challenge for India, guys? According to economic survey, the challenge for India was that there was a trade-off between lives and livelihood. As I told you that there was a conflict. There was a question in front of the policymakers that do you want to save human lives or do you want to save the economy? You can't save both at the same time during a pandemic like COVID. Now, strategy. What strategy did we adopt? Now, Government of India said that this is crisis, no doubts. So Government of India said that why not have a strategy so that in the short run we can focus on health, which means save life in the short run, and in the medium run and long run, Government of India said that we can save both life plus economy. That was the strategy that we wanted to take. And that is what Government of India decided. That in the short term, they said we will focus on health and sacrifice GDP. In the long run, health will be taken care of as usual, but we will focus on GDP, which means economic growth. That's the strategy. And what is the result? The result is exactly this. In the short run, India lost out a lot on GDP. We lost hell lot of GDP because we followed a strategy where we wanted to save lives. And in medium and long run, now India is showing a recovery called as V-shaped recovery, which we will discuss towards the end of this lecture. But that is the result. All right. Now, the economic survey, as I told you that I'll give you first the summary of economic survey, entire economic survey, volume 1. So this is the overview. First they talk about challenge, then they talk about strategy, then they talk about result. Now do you understand why I have divided the entire economic survey into part A, B and C? I was actually doing this. All right. So now this one, and next question that the economic survey answers is what should India do to recover? That's very important because ultimately everything ends. The crisis would also end. And ultimately we will grow as before. But can we speed up the process of recovery and growth? Can we speed up the process so that both health as well as economy is taken care of? Yes. These are the things mentioned in the economic survey. They are saying if we follow this approach, then we will be able to take care of both health and the economy. So what's the first one? Continued reforms, which means reforms should continue. One of the reforms that all of you would have heard is Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme or package. So those kind of reforms they're saying should continue. Innovation. Ultimately vaccines or anything, they all depend upon R&D and innovation. So innovation should continue. Then timely regulatory support. So if a particular sector, for example, MSMEs or suppose poor section of the society or migrant workers, if they need support, Government of India should give that support in time. That is very, very important. Now, withdrawal of forbearance. So for example, if banks are suffering from NPA crisis, if a public sector unit is not performing, or if a particular thing is not going in the direction that we want, we should not tolerate losses. Why? Because that loss is not just about government loss, that loss is for the whole country and the economy. So they're saying that take measures to take care of things which are troubling you. Focus on common man bare necessities index. You know, few years back, Government of India gave the concept of ease of living, which means all those things that make the life of a citizen better. For example, affordable housing, drainage system, using digital technology to make our lives easier, hospitals, schools and everything. So this economic survey introduces a new index called as Bare Necessities Index, BNI, which measures how happy people are with the basic things that they must have in an economy or in a society. So for example, food, clothing, shelter, law and order, these are basic things that I require. So this index measures if these basic things are available in India or not. All right, so this is an interesting thing, and government should make sure that the value of this index should be good. All right, so this, now before we start chapter 1, I would like to give you an overview of entire chapter 1 of economic survey using a diagram, so that when we start to do each of the smaller parts, it would be easy for you to understand. So guys, this is your COVID story that is given in chapter 1 of economic survey volume 1. This entire thing that you see is given in chapter 1. Plus there are some inputs from my side as well. I'll tell you what the story is. So this is your COVID story. It starts right there. If you look at the side of the board, you will see that the story starts there, here. So here the world was hit by COVID. The moment we were hit by COVID, the first thing to note is that it was uncertain. We had no idea about how long it is going to continue, how many people would be impacted, and how we are going to reduce it, which policy will work, which will not work. We had zero idea about everything related to COVID. So this is uncertainty. Why was it lethal? It was lethal because it started to spread very, very fast. That's number one. And number two, it started to take a lot of lives. Hence, it was very lethal. Spreading fast and taking a lot of lives. Mortality rate was very, very high. And I already gave you the concept of case fertility rate, CFR. Now, crisis versus COVID. This is something very unique about this COVID crisis, that if you look at the crisis that the world has suffered before it, for example, global financial crisis, it happened because of problems in the field of capital market, finance. Now, you have heard of crisis because of oil prices. You have heard of crisis because of other things like wars that is leading to crisis. But this was unique because it was induced by health. So this is not a normal crisis. This is COVID. It's unique. It's health related. Plus, another thing that makes it unique is the fact that this is highly synchronized across the world. So if you look at the global, Great Depression of 1929-30, the Great Depression of 1929 and 30, this was a crisis. It reached its peak. The Great Depression reached its peak in around 1931-32. Even at that time, 85% of the world was covered. 85% of the global economy got impacted. But because of COVID, in a very short span of few months only, more than 90% of the countries of the world have been affected by COVID, economically and health-wise. Severe impact. So this is highly synchronized. It's not that only US is being impacted or India, but across the world everybody is getting impacted. So that's another unique thing about COVID. Another unique thing about COVID is your normal methods of solving a crisis won't work here. Why? Because everybody has to stay home, factories have to be shut, government does not have money, people have lost their jobs, industries have come to a standstill, nothing is working, which means everything is under lockdown. That's adding a uniqueness to this COVID related crisis. Since this crisis is unique, so the question arises that is India in a position to handle it better than other countries, or are we more vulnerable? So chapter 1 then says that see, this crisis is unique, it's lethal, it's uncertain, and in fact there are some features of India which makes India more vulnerable to crisis because of COVID. I'll tell you what. So India has huge population. So our number of people, total number of people in India, very huge. Second largest country in the world in terms of population, absolute numbers. Density of population. So if you go to any market in India, go to any public place, railway stations, airports, you go to any mall, you will see the number of people in a small area, too huge. Population density is very high. So that's another problem for India. So if you look at India, India is more vulnerable. Plus, since the population density and population is very, very high, if one person has it, then that person will infect hundreds of other person, many, many more person. And I told you that factor is called as R0, R0. I told you when we begin the lecture. So one person affecting many people in the process. So these things make India more vulnerable. So anyway, this is a unique problem. India is more vulnerable. So problem itself is big, plus we are vulnerable. Add these two and you will see that we are in a very bad shape. Now why? Because then there are two shocks that India suffered. We are specifically talking about India now because we are focusing on Indian Economic Survey. So coming back to India. So India is suffering a health shock, right? Plus India also suffered an economic shock. Now why did we suffer an economic shock? Because this is a unique problem that has happened, whereby the solution cannot be like give more money to people, because even if you give more money to people, where will they spend? It's lockdown. Plus migrant workers, they lost their jobs, they lost their livelihoods. There is absolute number of poor people in India is so huge. India suffers from the problem of malnutrition, hunger. There are problems related to health, women. So there are so many problems in India that this health related crisis affected the economy even more severely. That is another problem. Now since we are suffering from twin shocks, health shock plus economic shock, India needed smart solutions. And smart solution doesn't mean economic solution. Smart solution means solutions which will help us to take care of both health shock as well as economic shock. And what is that solution? We had no idea. Why? Because this problem is uncertain, this problem is lethal and unique. So since this happened for the first time, nobody had any idea about what to do to solve it. So what did India do? India used three motivations. What are the three motivations used by India to find a solution? One motivation was a research by Sargent. So this was a Nobel-winning research. Because of this research, this subject expert, he got a Nobel Prize. So this research was published in 2001. India used that. I'll tell you what the research says. And the second motivation for India is Spanish flu. So this was a case which happened around 1918, 1918, and some steps were taken to control it. India took some lessons from it and adopted it, right? So this was the second thing. Third is the barbell model or strategy in finance. In finance, we use this strategy in some situations. So India got motivation from these three, and using these three, India took some important lessons. One common thing mentioned in all the three, which was directly or indirectly mentioned, or India took the lesson, was lockdown. So see, these three motivations motivated us to have a lockdown, and that lockdown has two unique features in India. First, it was a very early lockdown, which means we did not wait much. We went for lockdown very early. And second thing, which is very important, is this was a very stringent lockdown, which means lockdown was very severe. So we did two things, early lockdown and stringent lockdown. And we will see when we go through this chapter slowly, we will see that had we not gone for early as well as stringent lockdown, we would have been in a very bad situation compared to what we are today. All right. So when I teach you lockdown, I'll tell you when did lockdown happen, what is the importance of this lockdown, the efficacy or relevance of this lockdown. And then I'll tell you how stringent was Indian lockdown, which means how severe was that lockdown through an index called as stringent index or stringency index. This stringency index would be developed by Government of India, not would be, but it has already been developed by Government of India. Plus we are also using one index which has been developed by Oxford. We are using both of these, and we are trying to find out how good or bad was the effect of lockdown. All right, so that will do. So we'll see the results for India. Now, I told you that we are having economic shock, and for that we got these three motivations. These three motivations gave us lockdown, but lockdown was a short-term solution. And every problem in economy that you see would have solutions at three levels: short-term, medium run, and long-term solution. So this is a short-term solution. What about the medium-term and long-term solution? This is your medium-term and long-term solution. Then we'll talk about medium and long-term solution, which is demand-side solution, supply-side solution, direct benefit transfers, Atmanirbhar Bharat. When we do all these things, short-term solution plus long-term and medium-term solutions, then we are getting a V-shaped recovery. That is your entire story of chapter 1. In fact, this is the entire story of Economic Survey Volume 1. So now we will go to each of these points slowly and separately. All right. This is chapter number 1 now. We are going to do each of the paragraphs and sections mentioned in the economic survey, but I gave you the entire story. Now it says that COVID-19 is once in a century crisis. I've already told you why it is once in a century crisis. See, where did it originate? The economic survey says, see, the entire world is still trying to figure out where it originated, though everybody knows it. So economic surveys takes the devil out of the box and it says that it originated in Wuhan city of China. Not originated, but it says that the economic survey says that it has been identified for the first time at Wuhan city of China. There is a difference in saying that it originated here and it was identified here. So they're very smart. They're saying it was identified. Now WHO, World Health Organization, within 3 months of identification of this crisis, called it a pandemic. Within 3 months of identification, it was called a pandemic by World Health Organization. Imagine the scale and the scope of the problem that it caused. Imagine the rate at which, speed at which it was impacting the health. Now, within a year, so why is it lethal? Why is it once in a century kind of crisis? Because within a year, it has infected almost 9.6 crore people. Can you imagine? Almost close to 10 crore people. And it is growing at an average rate of 3.3%. Per day. Per day, it is growing at an average speed of 3.3%. Hence, it is once in a century. Why is it lethal? It is lethal because I told you already that the number of daily cases is still rising. It's going up. Okay, and how many cases are being diagnosed every day? 6 lakh cases per day. Hence, it is lethal. Now, it has led to almost, and by the way, this is global figure across the world. It has led to deaths of close to 21 lakh people across the world. 21 lakhs is not a very small number. So this is lethal. Now, if you look at the global case fatality rate, which means if 100 people are detected by COVID, so initially 5 to 6 people were losing life. 5 to 6 people lost their life. Now it has been controlled a bit. So if 100 people are being diagnosed with COVID, 2.2, close to 2 or 3 people are losing life. So it is being controlled, but it is still very high. Out of every 100% diagnosed, 3 people lose their life. Now it's a pandemic-led recession. There is something very interesting about it. See, COVID has led to health crisis. Now, because of health crisis, people have lost life. I told you close to 21 lakh people globally lost life. Now, governments across the world have gone for lockdown to save the spread of the disease. But when you lock down something, look at the word lockdown, that means everything is becoming stagnant, including economy. So what happens is it triggered a global recession. That is the, the problem that COVID has caused. From disease to health crisis to economic crisis. Now the world economy is estimated to contract, which means the world economy will be squeezed or contracted by 4.3% as per World Bank and 3.5% as per IMF. So there will be a contraction of world economy by close to 4% on an average. Okay. Now why is COVID unique, guys? COVID is unique, I already told you. It is unique because of the following features. First is cause. Second is it's highly synchronized. And third is the question of life versus livelihood. Because of these 3-4 things, it is plus another thing which makes it unique is both demand and supply got impacted. So let me tell you one by one. Cause. If you look at the previous crisis that the world has suffered or India has suffered, you will see that the previous crisis used to be because of finance. So look at the years when we had crisis because of finance, Great Depression, then a crisis in 82, 91, 2009, right? Then Another crisis, another reason for crisis seen across the world has been oil prices, and we have seen the crisis in 75, 82. These are global crises. Now, another reason for crisis has been world wars and other wars that are being fought. So 1914, 1721, 1945, 46. Because of these, the crisis happened. But this time, the crisis is because of COVID, which is a disease. It impacted health. Because of health, lockdown. Because of lockdown, economic crisis. So health-induced economic crisis. Now, Great Lockdown, it is also called as Great Lockdown, by the way. So if you see, it was called as Great Depression. Then we have Global Financial Crisis. All right, Global Financial Crisis of 2009. And this crisis actually has been called as the Great Lockdown. So whenever you see GL, you should understand they are talking about the COVID related crisis. So what is so special about it? When you look at the Great Depression, if you look at the Great Depression, then almost 85% of the economies of the countries got impacted. But because of COVID, more than 90% of the economies have already been impacted. And in fact, if it goes on like this, we won't be surprised if we see that around 95, 97% economies would be impacted. Currently, it has crossed 90%. Now, COVID, hence it is called as once in a 150-year event. Okay, once in a 150-year event. Now, another unique feature is life versus livelihood. I'll explain it to you what it means. So, see, COVID presented a dilemma that either we take care of the economy or we take care of the health of the people. So in the short run, many countries including India, they had to decide that, okay, we will take care of health, which means we will go for lockdown. So how do you take care of health? By lockdown plus by giving healthcare facilities. But the moment you go for lockdown, what will happen? It will trigger economic crisis. So because of lockdown, economic crisis. So we were able to save lives, but we had to sacrifice the GDP. In the medium term and long term, what is happening? Now we have started things like Atmanirbhar Bharat, etc. And now we are taking care of economy. So do you see how in the short run we had to sacrifice GDP to save lives, but in the long term or medium term, we can be back and we can focus on economy as well. So this was a dilemma which the governments faced. Now, another problem was that COVID impacted not only demand or supply, but it impacted both. I'll tell you how. So suppose this is COVID. So what did COVID do? Because of COVID, there was lockdown. And because of lockdown, supply chain got broken. What do you mean by that? So there are factories which got shut. The factories shut down. So there was no supply. For example, if I want to buy this pen, because the factories are shut, this pen was not available, which means there was a supply chain earlier, but that supply chain did not exist. Globally, the supply chain got broken. This is because of COVID, lockdown, all right? So supply chain broke. Then slowly people lost job. People lost job, income, everything gone. Income gone, jobs gone. Plus, whenever we suffer from crisis, guys, so for example, there is a health crisis. So would you like to spend a lot of money during health crisis, or would you like to save money so that if you need money for health services, you would have it in your pocket, you would save. So savings increased, which means consumption fell. So there was no demand, plus there was no supply. Both these things got broken during COVID. Hence, COVID is unique. So guys, if during COVID, I'm telling you that lockdown happened, supply chain got broken, people lost job, no income, plus there was disease, so there was no demand. Now, how do you revive? How do you solve these two problems? Because these two problems are coming together. So some smart solution is needed, right? Because the problem is unique, so solution has to be unique. And how do you solve the problem? I'll tell you. So suppose somebody says that let us try to solve the COVID problem using demand side solutions and supply side solutions. Which solution would you prefer? I'll tell you about each of the solutions. So I told you that people lost jobs, right? So jobs and income gone, plus factories shut, no factories, hence no supply or very less supply. This was the situation. Now, how to solve it? So suppose that government of India comes and says, I am going to distribute cash to people. Suppose government starts to give cash to people. What will happen? Are people going to use the cash? No. People would use the cash only to buy essential things like medicines, like food, grocery. Beyond that, people won't spend cash. They will save it. Why will they save it? Because this is a health crisis, they might need money in future. So they will save it. That's one thing. So if government of India starts to distribute cash or they try to increase the demand, it's not going to happen. But if government of India keeps pushing, they keep on giving, a cash or stimulus to people. Let's say that the government of India does that, or government would have done it initially. What would have happened in the initial phases of COVID? There was lockdown. The factories were shut, which means that if you give money to people and if they start to demand pen and mobile phones, who will supply the mobile phones? Initially, nobody, because there was lockdown. So if there is too much of money, but there is no supply, what will happen? Inflation. This would have happened. If government would have pushed a lot of demand side steps or policies, it would have led to inflation, runaway inflation, very high level of inflation. So the government of India said that we are not going to start with demand side measures, we will start with supply side measures. And what are the supply side measures, smart solutions that we started to think of? So for example, government of India started to take care of the supply chain. So they started to take steps for medium and small scale industries. They started to revive the factories, the manufacturing, so that once the factories start to operate, suppose this factory starts to operate, it manufactures pen, mobile phone, watches, everything, laptops, then you give money to people. So once your factory is working and then you give money to people, and when they demand, then these factories will provide the mobile phone and laptop to people. People are demanding, factories are supplying. So this will solve the problem of crisis. So first you need to make your factories run, and then you need to take demand side measures so that people have money in their hand, and then your system would start to run. This is the smart solution. So guys, now we are going to look at why India is more vulnerable. See, COVID is very dangerous, but what makes it more dangerous in India is because there are some factors or attributes of India which makes it more vulnerable. I'll give you an example. Look at network effect. What is network effect? Network effect, guys, would mean that, for example, if one person has COVID, all right, so suppose he has COVID. Now, if this person starts to use public transport or meets 20 other guys, he is going to spread COVID to 20 other people. This is called as network effect. So if the population of a country is huge, which means there are so many people in absolute terms, network effect will be very, very high, and it is true for India. So that's the danger that we are facing. Hence, the COVID spread very, very fastly in India because of network effect. Now we have huge population density as well. Per square kilometer, the number of people living in India is very, very high. So that is another problem. Next is elderly population. See, in terms of percentage, our elderly population is not very huge. But if you look at absolute people, absolute number of people who are elder in India, it's huge because our population is huge. So that is another problem because elders were more vulnerable to COVID. Now, overburdened health infrastructure. In our country, the number of doctors, hospital beds, number of ventilators, machines, oxygen mask, all these things, their number is very, very low. But the population is huge. So if in our population, let's say 10 lakh people start to suffer from COVID, they would all need hospital beds and everything, and doctors and healthcare workers not available. Why? Because our healthcare infrastructure is very, very poor. So these are some of the things which makes India more vulnerable. Okay, so I have explained network effect. Let me explain it properly to you. So guys, I told you that this number is called reproduction number. See, reproduction number, I'm going to teach you this. R0 is called reproduction number. It means that if one person has COVID, how many more people is he going to infect? This is called reproduction number. All right. So if reproduction number is less than 1, which means if one person is going to infect less than one person, which means he's not even infecting one person properly, that means that the disease will die out, which means COVID would vanish because the person is not infecting others. If R0, R0, which means reproduction number is less than 1, which means one person is infecting less than one person, so disease will be wiped out. If R0 is equal to 1, which means one person infects one more person. So in this case also, the COVID will not turn into a pandemic. Why? Because one person is affecting just one person, so it won't turn into a pandemic. It can be controlled. But if is greater than 1, if reproduction number is greater than 1, which means that one person is affecting 3 people, 5 people, 20 people, then this will lead to pandemic. And this has happened across the world. So if we know the value of R0, which means if we know that how many people are each infected people infecting, then we can find out whether we need to go for lockdown or not. We can have a strategy. So for example, if one person in New Delhi is infecting 3, 4, 5, 7 people, that means New Delhi has to be under stringent, strict lockdown. But suppose in Kerala, one person is affecting less than one person, you don't need strict lockdowns. You need measures, but you don't need stringent lockdown. So that's why knowing this number is very, very important. Okay? So already explained. By the way, this point is important. So it says that this is called super spreading. What is super spreading? So if one person is infecting thousands of people, then it is called as super spreading. All right, it's not a very difficult thing, just a term. Okay, I have already explained you network effect. Okay, look at this please. So here I have written for you that R0, what is R0? Reproduction number, which means how many people are being infected by one person. It is R0. Now, R0 and transmission potential. What is transmission potential? Transmission potential means that what is the potential or capability of one person to infect others. Okay, so this R0, which means reproduction number, and transmission potential, which means the speed at which COVID would be transmitted in a country, it depends upon two things: absolute population and population density. So it says, again, I'm just covering this point again, that the speed at which COVID would be transmitted across a country depends upon two things. First is absolute population, and second is population density. Now, if absolute population is very high in a country, then two things would happen. So, number of cases would be very high, and number of deaths, which means fatality, will be very, very high. This is a research, all right. This research has been published in Economic Survey, that if the absolute population is high, number of cases will be high, deaths will be high. But if the population density is high, which means in every square kilometer the number of people living is very high, then cases will be high, but necessarily number of deaths won't be high. So they say that number of deaths don't depend upon population density. Number of deaths depends more precisely on absolute population. But number of cases depends upon both. All right. So this is a research which has been observed. It has been observed actually after the pandemic that this is true in India, across the world. Now, do you see the difference that absolute population affects cases and death rate? Population density affects cases more, and it does not have much effect on deaths. It has effect on deaths, but it does not have so much effect on death that these absolute population have, which means this is a potential UPSC question. UPSC can ask you this question. All right. Now, facts about population density. The global average is 58 persons per square kilometer. In every square kilometer, so suppose this is a rectangle, in the world you will see 58 people here, but in India, in the same box, you will see around 382 people. In the same box, 382 people, in the same box, 58 people. Look at the density in India, huge. I have already explained this. I have already explained these points. Now the MCQ. Okay. Look at the MCQ, guys. Consider the following statements with regard to spread of, COVID-19. It says, this is an MCQ. Consider the following statements with regard to spread of COVID-19. How does COVID-19 spread? First, countries with higher population have shown higher caseloads, means number of cases, and higher fatalities, means number of deaths. Higher population, higher caseload, and higher deaths. Absolutely correct. Countries with higher population density, all right, have shown higher caseloads, means higher cases, though fatalities do not vary much with population. Number of deaths are not highly related to population density. Absolutely correct statement. Density and city size, which means if city size is big, density is huge, then it aggravates its spread, which means number of cases would be huge. Yes. So all the three are correct. Answer is 1, 2, and 3. Such kind of questions can be asked in UPSC. Okay. So now what was India's response, guys? I told you, remember the first diagram I gave you when we started the lecture? I gave you a chart. So in that chart, I told you that India adopted, here I had written the word lockdown, if you remember, right? So what was India's response? Flatten the epidemic curve. I'll teach you this, don't worry. So what did India do? Two things: containment strategy and non-pharma interventions. So India said that since the disease has already started, let us reduce its impact. Let us make sure that the disease doesn't spread. And for that, what did we do? Surveillance, early detection, isolation, contact tracing, and social distancing, which is maintain a distance. And if somebody has come in contact with another person who has COVID, trace him, put him under medical surveillance. So these are called as containment strategy, which means we want to contain it in a particular area or zone. And non-pharma interventions, which means that now we are taking steps to cure as well as contain. So lockdown, closure of schools, business, travel restrictions. So we wanted to make sure that the disease doesn't spread, so we took 2 steps. All right. Now India's response. Now we are going to do this. Flatten the epidemic curve. Okay. So India's response. Let us look at India's response. This is a very interesting graph. If you understand this graph, you would understand almost everything related to COVID. So let's see. Suppose that India would not have gone for lockdown. What would have happened? If we would not have gone for lockdown, then the number of cases, look at this, number of cases on y-axis, on x-axis, time. So if we would not have gone for lockdown, because of networking effect and because of reproduction parameter, I told you reproduction parameter is how many people are being infected by one person. Since it was very high, and networking effect because people in India were using public transportation, they were going to offices and work, plus population is huge. So because of that, if we would not have gone for lockdown, what would have happened is the number of cases would have risen very, very quickly to peak. Very quickly. So number of cases would have risen and Government of India would not have got time to develop a vaccine, or our healthcare system was not ready to handle so many number of cases. And then it would have started to come down. But we would have reached peak. By now, entire India would have been infected by COVID because of population. So what did Government of India do? Instead of this, today, what we see in India is this. And how did it happen? So what Government of India did is lockdown. Because of lockdown, the increase in the number of people infecting others, which means if I have COVID, because I am under lockdown, I would not infect too many people. Maybe I'll infect my family members, but I would not infect the entire population. So because of the lockdown, one person was not infecting entire community, and this is how we controlled and suppressed. So what happened is, India reached its peak very late. India reached its peak late. See, this is time. Without lockdown, India would have got these number of cases very fast. But because of lockdown, the number of people infected was increasing slowly. So we reached peak slowly. And because we got this extra time, so we developed a vaccine. In other countries of the world, today, their peak is like this. So for example, US, UK, they suffered something like this. And now they are suffering from a second wave of COVID. So it did not end here for them. They reached peak, they came down, and then again like this. Now they are developing vaccines. But India slowed its spread of the disease called COVID by lockdown, intense lockdown, very stringent lockdown. And in the meantime, we improved our health infrastructure, hospital infrastructure, and we developed a vaccine. So the number of days reached to peak in India increased. This is called flattening the curve. See, the curve has been flattened. If India would not have gone for intense lockdown, the curve would have been like this. But because of lockdown, the curve is like this. This is a flat curve. All right, that is what is mentioned there. Okay, and I told you when we started the lecture that India had three sources of motivation to control the COVID. First was a Nobel Prize winning research in Hansen and Sargent. Second is Spanish flu pandemic, and third is barbell strategy in finance. Let me tell you what this research says. This research says, this research by these Nobel laureates says that if you are suffering from a crisis or a problem, be it anything, all right. So imagine a worst case scenario. Imagine a worst case scenario. Believe that you have reached the worst case. So in a worst case scenario, what are you going to do? In a worst case scenario, since it is already worse, that means you have been negatively affected. So you cannot escape the problem because the problem has hit you. So in a worst case scenario, they are saying minimize loss. I'll give you an example from real life. So for example, now suppose that you have appeared in UPSC in prelims. Now in the prelims, in the initial few questions, so there are 100 questions, 100 MCQ asked in UPSC prelims. In the first few questions, you were slow. So let's say in the first 20 questions, you were very slow. But then you realized that if I don't increase my speed, in rest of the questions, rest of the 80 questions, I might not be able to qualify the exam. So are you going to leave the paper? No. You are going to minimize this loss. You are going to cover up this loss. You will make sure that you don't, slow down your speed any further. You will make sure that you increase the speed. You are minimizing the loss now. And how will you minimize the loss? By becoming more fast in these questions. So similarly, if an economy or a country, society suffers from a problem, so let's say that we have reached the worst case scenario, and there, what should be the strategy? Minimize the loss. And what is the loss we are trying to minimize here? Human lives. That is what we are going to do. And that's the policy. And why do we need to minimize the loss? Why? Because according to Hansen and Sargent, they are saying that this problem is new, COVID is new. If you apply their research, so it fits it. It fits their research. The COVID is a new problem. We don't know the case fatality rate. We don't know the reproduction rate. Remember, I told you all these things when we began the lecture. Peak time not known, impact not known, policy not known, nothing is known. So they are saying that when you face an uncertain problem about which nothing is known, then in that case, where should the policy focus? Policy should focus that if things become worse, since nothing is known, if things become worse, that means if everybody is getting impacted by COVID, what should you do? You should minimize the loss. And how do you minimize the loss? By lockdown, by taking care of your health infrastructure. So what's the lesson you are getting? Be prepared for the worst, but then start improving your health infrastructure. Till the time you do it, go for lockdown. That's how the government of India got this idea. The second motivation is Spanish flu. If you look at the Spanish flu, it happened in 1918-19. It was highly contagious and lethal, just like COVID. It was almost similar to COVID. And what was done there? It infected 500 million people. Can you believe it? Or about 1/3 of the world was impacted because of this Spanish flu. It killed 50 to 100 million people. Oh my God. Look at this. So what did they do? They actually, as a solution, they went for lockdown. Lockdown implemented in 1918. School, theatre, church, quarantine, everything that you see today in COVID had actually happened there. And then there were interventions like hand washing, sanitization, physical distance was being maintained. So these are the things that was done. We are doing pretty much the same thing now. Now, what is barbell strategy in finance? Now, the barbell strategy in finance says, and this is the third motivation for Government of India to go for lockdown. So, what are the steps under barbell strategy? It says, identify the worst outcome or scenario. So, what is the worst outcome? That almost everybody is being impacted or affected by COVID. So, imagine that the entire population is affected by COVID. Hedge against above outcome. How are you going to make sure that this outcome doesn't get worse than this, or how to control this? If this is the worst you can reach, what to do so that you don't reach the worst? So create that policy and implement it, and then take a feedback. So we knew that entire India is going to be affected by COVID. We started with lockdown. That was the hedging. So we did lockdown to control it, and then we started to take feedback. That is lockdown working? If it is working, great. If not, then update the response, which means along with lockdown, implement something more. Mass sanitization programs, etc., etc. Travel bans. All right. So this is your barbell strategy. So what is common in all these three things that we have seen? Lockdown. What is the common strategy? Common strategy in all the things is lock it up. Okay. Now, since we have already started the lockdown when the problem hit, what is the efficacy of this lockdown? Look at the question. This can be asked in UPSC. So discuss the efficacy of lockdown during COVID pandemic. So what's the relevance of lockdown during COVID pandemic? Did it give us results? Yes, it did. I'll give you an example. So with social distancing, transmission was controlled. So if I'm not meeting anyone, I'm not spreading the disease. Second is, Government of India got time. I told you that our curve was like this. The disease spread curve was flat, which means India got more time. In that time, government developed a 5T strategy to solve the problem. What is the 5T strategy against COVID? Test, which means more tests are being done. Yes. Track, using the app, mobile app, as well as other measures, we are tracking as to who is having COVID and who is not. Trace, then find the person who has COVID. Treat, and technology. So these are the 5 T's that Government of India is using to treat this problem. Now, because of lockdown, what has happened? Again, it's the research which the Government of India has done and found out that since we went for early lockdown, see guys, lockdown is not important. Important thing is, when did you go for lockdown? And was the lockdown very strict or loose? We went for early lockdown. That's the beauty. And what is the impact of early lockdown? It delayed our peak time, which means the number of people that you see today who have been infected by COVID, it reached this peak slowly, which means that without lockdown, the number of people infected in India would have increased like this. But because of lockdown, the number of infections have increased like this. So see, more time to reach the peak, plus the peak is low. If we were not having lockdown, these many people would have been impacted. Can you imagine? These many people. Now only these people. That is what is written here. Number of deaths have also come down because of containment and lockdown. And in India, the lockdown was not just early, but it was intense. So the number of total deaths in India is not very high as we see in other countries. See again, cities with early and multiple interventions, which means that if you go across states or cities, those who did early lockdown plus multiple lockdowns, there the number of deaths and infection is 50% less than other cities. That's the point. Now, what are the 3 things which have given result fastest result in control of COVID? Face mask, physical distance and hand washing. It has helped us to control the disease a lot. What is the summary of everything that the economic survey says? The summary is early lockdown plus intense or aggressive lockdown would have, in fact not would, but it has already helped India to save a lot of deaths plus to slow down the COVID. And in the meantime, we developed vaccine so that the second wave of COVID has not arrived in India. Okay. Now, I was constantly using this term early plus aggressive. How do you measure if the lockdown in India was aggressive or not? To do that, we are going to use Oxford COVID-19 Government Response Tracker. It measures the speed or intensity at which measures like lockdown were taken by a government. It is OXCGRT tracker. Now, according to this tracker, it has given 100 marks to India. See, it has given 100% marks to India and said that India took the most strict lockdown, one of the most strictest lockdown in the world. And India did this lockdown for 40 days at a time when the number of people in India who were infected was hardly 500 to 600. When India went for lockdown, hardly 600 people were infected and we got 100% marks under this index that yes, our lockdown was the strictest. At the same time when India was having lockdown, the infection in US was 1 lakh and the nature of their lockdown was such that they got only 72 marks, only 72% value in this index. A country with 1 lakh infected cases is getting 72%, a country with 500 cases is getting 100% marks because we went for intense lockdown and the results are clear. And what are the results? The results today for India and US is this. So India has a declining trend. India has lowest case fatality rate, which means number of deaths amongst the infected people. India has one of the lowest in the world. And US is still seeing around 2 lakh new cases every day. See, that's the problem with US. Now, efficacy of lockdown. So if we see what this survey does is, this economic survey looks at some similar countries which are similar to India in terms of population and old age population, because old age people are more vulnerable, plus case fatality rate. So the economic survey makes a list of the countries where the old age population is similar to India, plus the number of deaths amongst the infected people is similar to India. And then they analyze if those countries are doing better or India is doing better. Which are those countries? Mexico, Indonesia, Spain, South Africa, and a few more. So they find out that India has saved a large number of lives. Why has India saved a large number of lives? Because we went for strict lockdown. So we could save a large number of lives. Higher initial stringency in the countries, less deaths. Means those countries which took very strict lockdown measures, the number of deaths have been low in these countries, like India. Now, this economic survey also makes a comparison between states. So I'll give you an example. Look at Maharashtra. The population density of Maharashtra is less than UP and Bihar. But the condition of Maharashtra was bad in terms of COVID spread and COVID containment. Whereas you expect a bigger state like UP and Bihar to have a far worse situation of COVID, but it was not the case. The case in Maharashtra was poorer than Bihar and UP. Come to South India. If you look at Kerala, Telangana, Andhra, they did much better in terms of COVID control. Tamil Nadu had a great impact, but Kerala, Telangana and Andhra, they did really well in COVID control. So how do we measure this? We measure this using stringency index. And what does the stringency index tell you? They tell you that what are the restrictions or lockdown and or to what extent were the lockdowns and other measures being used by these state governments to control the pandemic. All right. So since we took, remember guys, what are the lessons that you are learning here? India took early lockdown plus very strict lockdown. And what is the score of India in the Oxford index? 100. And we took strict lockdown for 40 days. So early plus strict. What's the result of what we did. The result is we could implement 5T strategy. This could be asked in prelims. Plus, we did the district and zone marking. So we marked red, yellow and green zones. Red would mean danger, that yes, there is a problem of COVID there. Yellow, middle, and green means it's perfect, almost perfect. Then we found out hotspots and containment zones. Hotspot and containment zones are those areas where a high number of cases have been found, plus the number of cases are increasing very, very fastly. These are hotspot and containment. We identified those things. Now, India was successful in flattening the pandemic. I gave you this diagram, no? That the curve for India was not like this, but the curve for India was like this. Right. Now, look at this point, that other than Argentina, India is the only country that has not experienced a second wave, which means second wave has not happened. UK is facing second wave, US is facing it. Now, lowest fatality rate despite being the second largest country, 96% recovery rate. This is true for India. So what is ultimately true for India? What are we saying? India therefore seems to have managed the health aspect of the COVID well, which means we could manage the health aspect really, really well. See, they're very clever. Economic survey has not said that we have managed the economic aspect well. They are saying that we have managed the health aspect very, very well. That's why I put it in red. Now, is India an outlier in its experience with COVID? This is a very interesting question. So they are saying that is it so that all the other countries behaved in a similar manner? So these are all the other countries and this is India. So is India very different from other countries in terms of management of COVID? Let's see. So number of days to reach the peak. See guys, if this is the graph, number of days to reach the peak for other countries is 50 days, which means within 50 days, across all other countries on an average, they reach the peak of COVID. Means the COVID increased very, very fastly in other countries. Within 50 days, very high number. But look at India. In India, they took 175 days to reach the peak. So this is 175 days to reach the peaks, which means India slowed down the impact of COVID. Second wave in US is 3 times more dangerous, but India does not have a chance of second wave. We might, but currently it doesn't look like because we are already vaccinating. Next is flattening curve. Now we are our curve. I already gave you this curve is flat. That's the next point. Alright guys, so this is the economic impact of slowdown. Very, very important. You know the health impact. I've already taught you the health impact, flattening of the curve, etc. Economic impact is very, very important and this will be asked in UPSC. So the first economic impact is on the service sector. Guys, you know something, that when it comes to provision of services, it needs face-to-face contact. For example, when you visit a doctor or a chartered accountant, anybody for that matter. So there has to be a face-to-face interaction. So if there is a lockdown, which industry will take one of the biggest hits? Service industry. It did. Many services took big hit. Why? Because the retail and the wholesale trade got impacted. Shopping malls got closed, right? Now, hospitality, arts, entertainment industry is a big money churner in India. It generates a lot of income. It's gone. So hotel, tourism, everything gone. So this has been a very bad impact on the economy. Now, second point under the economic survey is the impact on service industry of India was far bigger than the impact on manufacturing. Plus, you know that service industry contributes a lot in income and employment in India. Not a lot in employment, but even 30% employment in service industry is not less, mind you. So the contribution of service industry in terms of employment and income is decent. In terms of income, it's huge. In terms of employment, it's almost 30%, which is not bad. So this got impacted. Plus, there has been a severe impact on those people, the life of those people who depend upon the service industry in India. So that's the impact on services. Now I'm going to explain to you 3-4 things. First, the economic impact of COVID in terms of supply shock. Then the economic impact of COVID in terms of demand shock. And then I will examine a question that could India have used demand side measures to solve the problem of crisis? So first I'll tell you why COVID is both a demand shock and a supply shock. Then I will tell you that could India have used a demand side method to revive the economy? If India would have used only demand side, what would have been the problem? Then I will also tell you that what is the role of direct benefit transfers in solving the problem of COVID related economic crisis, and then I will give you my solutions. Alright, so I'm going to do all these things using a diagram. Okay, this COVID from the perspective of two kinds of losses. See, COVID led to both supply shock and COVID led to demand shock, and that's very, very important to understand these two. Why was COVID a supply shock? Why did COVID lead to supply shock? See, because of COVID, the factories were shut. The factories were stagnant, completely locked down, mind you. Now what happened? Because there was a lockdown, there was no supply, so supply chain got broken, both in India and across the world. Since factories are not running, who would provide you the pen? Who would give you the mobile phone? Who would give you the laptops? Nobody. So supply chain got broken, factories were shut, this was a supply shock. Alright? Why was COVID a demand shock? Because when the factories are shut, jobs are gone. The factories are not running, people don't have jobs, offices got closed, service industry, manufacturing, everything gone. So job losses. When your job is lost, your income is lost. Plus, since it is a health crisis, people do precautionary saving. So if you lost your job and you know that it is a COVID time, then I want to ask you a question, that if you have 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees in your pocket, would you spend it or save it? You would save it as a precautionary saving because you might need it in future. So people started to increase their savings. And where do we see the increased saving? In the Jan Dhan accounts also. We see that all of a sudden, Jan Dhan account balance started to increase like this. Okay. So people were doing precautionary savings. Hence, COVID was both a supply shock and demand shock. When you combine these two shocks, supply shock and demand shock, it is called as economic underheating. Have you heard of overheated economy? What is overheated economy? So for example, if I am a producer and if you all are consumer, now I am a producer and I feel that, there is some kind of optimism in the economy. People expect that everything will be really good in the economy is going in the right direction, country is progressing. So if an investor or manufacturer like me feels that people are very happy and optimistic, I would go on to increase my production thinking that people will buy my product. But suppose my expectation is way beyond reality. I'll keep on producing overproduction. I'll over-invest. I will have huge number of items in my factory. Inventory will be huge. But the market response will be normal. But my expectation was huge, so I invested a lot in the production. This is a situation which is called as economic heating, overheated economy. The opposite of overheated is underheated. When does underheating happen? Supply not happening, demand not there, people are saving more, job losses, income losses. So economic underheating. This actually happened. And these questions might be asked in UPSC, I'm telling you this. UPSC loves these kind of terms. So this is economic underheating. Now, I want to ask a question. That if you are a policy maker, when you become IS officers or you become the RBI governors or you would become the Prime Minister of India, or Finance Minister of India for that matter, wish some of you would become that. So how are you going to solve this problem? You are going to solve this problem in a unique way. I'll tell you why. Now, if you are the government and you are going to pump in a lot of money in the hands of people, so for example, if I have lost my job, and if the government of India comes and gives me 100 rupees and says, take this 100 rupee, start demanding new things because there is a demand shock, we want to increase demand. The moment you give me 100 rupees, suppose I am saving the money, but I will use 10 rupees to demand maybe a mobile phone or something. Other than necessity, if you keep on giving money, then I will demand new things. When I come in the market to buy things, nothing is available because supply shock is there. Factories are shut. So if I have money and I am demanding things, but supply is not happening, what will be the result? Inflation. Everybody demands, nobody is supplying. Inflation. So the government of India said, let's not do inflation. Hence, to solve this problem of COVID, and the economic impact, the government of India first took supply side reforms, which means government started to revive the MSMEs, the closed industries. Government started to go to corporates and tell them, start opening up, and we removed the lockdown slowly. The removal of the lockdown was the supply side step that we were taking. And in fact, India is the first country to take supply side structural reforms during COVID. All right, India did that. It's a unique country. So we came with supplies, side measures, which means we started to relax the lockdown because second wave is not happening, plus vaccination is starting. On this side, vaccination plus lockdown is going, which means factories are opening. Now the government said that on this side, we are going to take a combination of steps. So for example, the government is taking Atmanirbhar Bharat package 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. These are the things government did, plus direct benefit transfer, DBT. Government started to give money in the hands of people. This is a combination of things that the government is doing here. Under Atmanirbhar Bharat package, government is making sure that more money is reaching in the hand of people. Jobs are being created. On that side, factories are opening up. Here, more jobs, more money, so that when people have money, they will demand goods and it will be provided. This is happening in India. Now, in US, instead of going for supply side steps, the US has started to give, money in the hand of people. They started to distribute cash, direct benefit transfers during COVID. And what was the result? The result was that suppose the government of US gave $100 in the hand of people during COVID, people used only 15% of the money they got, which means $15 for consumption. And what were they consuming? Basic necessities, food and medicine. Out of $100 that people got in US during COVID, they spent only $15 in basic necessities. $33 was saved by them. They did not spend it, they saved it, precautionary saving. And 52% of the dollars that they got was used by them to pay their old debt, which means 52% of the money that US government gave to people, 52% of that money was used to pay their debt. If they had taken a loan, they paid that loan using this money. So it was observed that if during a COVID-like crisis, if you start to give money in the hand of people directly, they won't use it, to demand normal things in the market. They would just demand necessities and they might not use it productively. So first take supply side steps, then take demand side steps. That is the whole funda. All right, and that is what I have explained here. So what did Government of India do? Initially, when we had to solve this problem of crisis, the Government of India took two steps in the demand side. Step number one, the government slow dose of liquidity. The government provided slow dose of liquidity. How? The government started to make sure that money reaches the hands of vulnerable people. Food is reaching people through slow dose, Atmanirbhar Bharat package 1.0, and direct benefit transfers. I'll give you the details. Now, when the lockdown is opening up slowly, Government of India has launched Atmanirbhar Bharat package 2, 3, 4, 5. These things are helping. So this is how the government took demand side steps, and this is how the government took supply side step. Now let me give you some details. Okay. So I've already explained this. So what are the steps taken by Government of India? See, these are the steps that I was explaining to you, that in the quarter 1 and 2, which means April to September, April to September 2020, under Atmanirbhar Bharat 1.1, we noticed, so guys, these are the reforms undertaken during COVID crisis, so that India could come out of it. So let's see what the Government of India did in the quarter 1 and 2, which means between April to September, when we were reaching the peak of it, we were doing Atmanirbhar package 1.0. Let's read it. So during this time, the government revenue came down because of lockdown. Or I remember, government did not have money. There are some critics who are saying that under Atmanirbhar Bharat package 1.0, the government did not do much. They did not release a lot of funds. Even I was one of the critics. But then there is a thing that we must keep in mind, that because of lockdown, the revenue of the government actually came down. Plus, number two, it was highly uncertain as to when the economy would open. Nobody knew the impact of the disease. Nobody knew anything about the disease. It was highly uncertain, not just India, but across the globe. So what we were doing is we were releasing slow doses of liquidity in the economy so as to see their impact. All right. So government revenue was down. So the government of India released direct benefit transfer funds, which means fund was being given directly in the hands of people. For essential commodities initially. So when you are trying to give money to people for essential commodities, you would give slow dose only. All right. So Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana for ensuring food security, direct benefit transfer to widows, pensioners, women, and Manrega fund was increased, moratorium was given, which means banks were not claiming their loans and rate of interest. Bank gave you extra time. Liquidity support for business like MSME. These were the things being given. And who were the target under this Atmanirbhar Bharat package 1.0? Vulnerable section of the society plus MSMEs. A lot of money was not given because supply was not happening. If you release a lot of money in the hand of people, it will lead to inflation. So no demand measures, as supply chain choked. Since supply chain was choked, so demand measures were not being done. When you come to quarter 3, October to December, Atmanirbhar Bharat 2.0 and 3.0, lockdown was slowly ending. When the lockdown is ending, that means factories have started. Since the factories have started, the government started to motivate the industries to invest more and people to consume more. Now demand side measures have started to be taken. And through Atmanirbhar 2.0 and 3.0, demand stimulus was released, which means government of India started to motivate people to demand more only when the economy was ready to supply more. Okay? And how did government do that? I'll give you an example. Suppose you are government of India. You start a national highway project, or you construct a hospital, you construct roads, airports, etc., etc. What are you going to do? You are going to employ people. All right. When you employ people, you pay them wages, their income will increase. When their income will increase, the demand, aggregate demand means total demand in the economy. Your total demand would increase. When the demand increase, factories will supply the goods. This is what the government of India was doing. But to be able to invest more in national highway, hospitals, schools and airports, these are called as capital expenditure of the government. What is capital expenditure? When the government invests in assets like machines, buildings, roads, hospital, these are called as capital expenditure. So was government of India increasing capital expenditure around October to December? Yes. See, capital expenditure increased. I will show you how. Look at this. So this is your current expenditure. What is this dotted line? Is the current expenditure. What is current expenditure? Expenditure which helps the government in its day-to-day functioning, like salaries, etc. What is capital expenditure? Expenditure in machines, buildings, roads. These are the assets that the government creates. Airports. So look at this. All of a sudden, the government of India started to increase it. Plus, we also saw that after the lockdown ended, see, when the lockdown and the COVID was at its peak, look at the money that we saw in the Jan Dhan accounts. The money in the bank of people increased like this. But now people are withdrawing money and they are consuming more. That is happening. All right. This I have already taught you. This is called as economic underheating. Let's read the question, guys. So, economic underheating and structural reforms. What led to the economic underheating during COVID? What measures were undertaken to tackle them? So I have already told you that what is economic underheating and what measures were taken. First, supply side was opened, and then both, towards the demand side, steps were taken to control it. So that, all right. Now structural reforms, very, very important. You would have heard of Atmanirbhar Bharat package. So if somebody will ask you a question, what are the steps taken under Atmanirbhar Bharat package to control the COVID situation in the economy? So what would be your answer? This. I'm going to start that answer now. So what are the structural reforms that happened under Atmanirbhar Bharat package? Under agriculture, very famous or infamous, these are the three things that happened. So the first is Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce, then Farmers Agreement of Price, and next is Essential Commodity Act. So if you look at all the three, first I'll tell you about Essential Commodities Act. Guys, I'll give you an example. So suppose that Government of India has created a list of some items, and suppose government is putting potatoes in that list, and government is saying that if potato is called as essential commodity, then you cannot have a stock of potato beyond a limit. Now suppose I am a food processing industry, and suppose potato is called as essential commodity. If you call potatoes as essential commodities, and if I am a food processing industry, that means I need regular supply of potatoes, which means I will keep potatoes in my godown and warehouse. But since potatoes are essential commodities, I cannot keep beyond a limit. That means, because if I do that, legal action might be taken against me. So the government said that essential commodities were important in 1950s and 60s. They were created to make sure that there is a smooth supply of certain goods and services. But today the things have changed, 1950 and today, 50s, 60s and today. So the government has changed the list of essential commodities. So for example, today mask is essential commodity. So nobody can charge you beyond a certain price for a normal mask. All right. So the government has made some changes in this list. Next is that the government has asked, you all know about the farmers bill, these two bills. I won't waste your time, but I'll just give you two quick points. One is contract farming, which the government has started, that the farmers can directly have a contract with companies like Reliance and all, and they can big bazaars and everything, and they can directly sell their products to them under contract farming. And here the farmers can sell their products on any portal, online, offline. The farmers can sell their product to anybody at their agreed upon prices, and nobody can take mandi fee from them now. The middlemen have gone. So these are the three major reforms under agriculture. MSMEs, the government has given a new definition of MSMEs, and according to new definition, almost 99% MSMEs have been covered. So new definition has been given, but whatever facilities, whatever the schemes of Government of India were there for the MSMEs, they have not been taken away. The definition has been changed to make it more realistic and to cover more MSMEs. Removal of artificial separation between manufacturing and services. So we had different definition for manufacturing MSMEs and service MSMEs. Now both of them have been clubbed together. So this is again a new step. Labor reforms. So we have now three labor reforms. See, all the labor reforms have been clubbed under four bills. First is Wage Code, Industrial Relation Code, Code on Occupational Safety and Social Security Code. So there were more than 450, close to more than 450 or something like that, labor laws in India. They have all been clubbed under these four categories. All right. So that's another reform. Then BPO, Business Process Outsourcing, work from home and work from anywhere. These two rules were very, very strict for BPOs. That there were some roadblocks because of which work from home and work from anywhere was not happening in BPOs. Government of India simplified the rules, and they said now work from home can be done for BPOs also. So these days when you are talking to customer care, mostly they are sitting at their home. Power distribution. So in India, for example, if I am a company which distributes and sells power, suppose my wires are not good, suppose my distribution network is bad. So to cover my losses, will I charge the customers? No. So the government is saying now you cannot do that. Plus in union territories, now distribution can be done by private sector also. That's a new thing. In public sector enterprises, government is saying that we will privatize non-strategic sectors and we will have government companies in the strategic sectors. That's the rule by Government of India now. So for strategic sectors, government will take control of it like atomic energy. But for non-strategic sectors, the government said we will have private companies also. Minerals, captive restriction removed, transparent auction. So earlier there was a lot of corruption in the auction of mining and minerals and everything. Now the government has made e-bidding a common phenomenon in minerals. So the parties bid and it's there on the internet, you can see it, and then whosoever quotes the maximum price, they get it. They get the mineral rights or the mines. Removal of captive restriction. Guys, what is captive mining? So for example, if I am a company which produces electricity, and suppose that I am producing electricity in one of the areas in Madhya Pradesh called Singrauli. So if I am buying coal, or if I am procuring coal, I have a method whereby I can actually have a coal mine within my campus. This mine, which is giving me coal to produce electricity and which belongs to me, is called as a captive mine. Why? Because the coal from this mine is directly being used in my own factory to produce electricity. So in my own power plant, I am using this coal from my own mine to produce electricity. This is called captive mine. And if this was the arrangement, then this particular company was not allowed to sell the coal to a third party. This was the rule. But now the government has said that if you have a mine, you have your own power plant, use the coal in your own power plant, or if you want to sell it, you can sell it also. There is no distinction between commercial and captive now. So if this guy wants to sell it outside, they can. If you want to use it in their own power plant, use it. All right. Then industry, what are the things that we have taken for industry? Production linked incentives, PLI scheme. So guys, what is PLI scheme? I'll tell you what. So the government of India has created a list of 10 sectors. For example, steel sector, pharmaceutical, medicine. These are some of the sectors in the production link scheme. What is happening in that? So suppose, let's take the example of medicine. So suppose I have a factory which produces or manufactures medicine. The moment I manufacture medicine, I can go to Government of India and say that, look, medicine is a part of this scheme. I have produced the medicine. Now please give me incentives. Please give me, arrange some money at a subsidized rate so that I can invest and buy more machines, so that I can manufacture better medicines. So these are some kind of facilities given under PLI scheme. That Government of India would give money for investment at subsidized rate, low rate of interest. The paperwork would be also streamlined for these sectors. National GIS enabled land bank system launch. So what the Government of India has done is, Government of India is doing a mapping of all the natural resources in a particular area, the forests, the minerals, plus which area would be suitable for industrial belt and industrialization, industrial parks. All these informations through satellite mapping are being available. All right, so 6-7 states have joined. Other states would also join this scheme called as land bank system. In the field of space, the government has allowed private companies to launch satellites. Plus, if there is a new tech entrepreneurship, so for example, if I am starting a technology-based company and I need data from the Government of India about mapping of a particular area, the government says under certain conditions they would give that data as well, which is a good thing. Now in the field of defense, guys, this is something interesting. So these ordnance factories, they provide weapons and machinery to our armed forces. So government is saying that we will make sure that they are organized on corporate lines and become more efficient. FDI limit in defense manufacturing under automatic route would be made 74%. So earlier the FDI was 49% under automatic route. Now it is 74%. It has increased. Now in India, the problem in the defense was that we needed weapons today, but the weapons would be procured after 10 years. And when the procurement happened, we were procuring obsolete quality of weapons. So now the government has said there would be time-bound defense procurement. And another point which should have been mentioned here is not there in the economic survey, that government has created a list of weapons, and that list will be changed every year, which India cannot import. So this year, suppose the government says we cannot import AK-47. Why? Because some Indian company within India is manufacturing it to promote Indian industries under Atmanirbhar. Government is creating a list of weapons every year which won't be imported for that year. Social infrastructure. Now there are some kind of projects. For example, suppose there is a bridge which requires to be constructed, let's say in a hilly area. So that bridge is good for the society, but that is economically not possible because it's very costly. So if there is an investment which is good for society but very costly, so money is not being made available for the projects, then government says that we will give you money under viability gap funding. Normally 20% of the project cost is given by Government of India. Under some exceptional percentage cases 20% more, 40%. Normally 20, but under some exceptional cases 40% can be arranged for such projects. If a private sector is interested, government can arrange this money for them. So that is another thing. All right. So these were the steps under Atmanirbhar Bharat package. All right, guys. So this is the famous V-shaped economic recovery. Let me tell you what that means. So this is time and this is GDP. All right. Now suppose the GDP of a country is increasing like this. Suppose the GDP of India is increasing like this. Or it should have increased like this. But then what happened is, in the midway, around 2020, some crisis happened. Crisis called COVID. And I told you COVID is both health crisis and economic crisis. So what happened is, all of a sudden, the GDP came down. It plummeted down. Why? Because of lockdown. Because of lockdown, factories are not running. People lost their jobs, no income. No supply, no demand. Now what happens is that slowly the lockdown is going. Now, when the lockdown is going, the factories are coming up, which means supply of goods will increase. When the factories are running, people would get jobs also, plus government is also doing direct benefit transfer, so demand of goods would also be there. Supply and demand would be there. Plus here we have to make an assumption, we have to assume that when the GDP was coming down because of crisis, permanent loss of job and income did not happen, which means because of crisis, the loss in job and the loss in income was not permanent, it was temporary. If we assume this, then when the GDP came down, then the Government of India or any government would take steps so that factories would restart, lockdown would be over and demand would be created. When that happens, then very fastly, suppose the economy comes back to its original path. See, this would have been the original path. So when the economy comes back to its original path, this shape of recovery is called V-shaped recovery. All right. What is the assumption here? That the loss of job and income because of a pandemic or crisis is not permanent and the economy bounces back to original path after supply and demand steps have been taken. This is V-shaped recovery. Now for India, this drop in GDP was huge. So even a slight increase in GDP is being reflected as a very huge jump here because the dive was deep. So even a small increase, the base effect, even a small increase from here shows that okay, India is progressing very fast because India went very low. When you lose everything, you don't have anything in your pocket. Suppose you don't have anything. If somebody gives you 1 rupee, it looks as if wow, 1 rupee because I had 0. But if I already have 1 lakh rupees and if somebody gives you 1 rupee, that doesn't mean anything. This is called base effect. When you start from a very low base, even a slight increase looks big. And that is the case with India. See? So what happened in India is 2019 GDP. So if this line is the GDP, suppose if everything would have been good in India, then our GDP would have been this line. But what happened is the GDP came crashing down because of pandemic, see? And what was the fall in GDP? Minus 7.7%. This is how much the GDP came down. Now, when the pandemic is slowly getting over, our GDP is increasing. What is the rate of increase? 11%, approximately 11.5 is the rate of increase here. And with this rate, we are expected to be 2.5% above the 2019 level. So this is the 2019 level of GDP. Will be slightly above that in 2021. That's the expectation. If you look at other countries, so for example, if you look at other developing countries, they also came crashing down, but their decrease was or fall was only minus 2.4. India was minus 7.7. Since India fell much below, I told you 0 rupees in your pocket. If somebody gives you 1 rupee, it looks big. So it is looking as if India is progressing very sharply. But the thing is, India fell very deep. Hence, even a small progress looks big. and other developing countries came down by only minus 2.4%. So their increase is like this. So this is for India V shape, and this is for rest of the developing economies. Now, the government of India did something interesting. You know what they did? They actually tried to find out, the government of India did an analysis to see the impact of lockdown on economic indicators. What are economic indicators? Like job, income, GDP, tax collection. So the government of India did a study of, to find out the impact of lockdown on important economic indicators for states. And we found out two things. First, there is a negative relationship between lockdown and economic indicators, which means that if lockdown was increasing, which means if you have a lockdown, your economic indicators would do bad. Obviously, because if there is lockdown, factories are not running, people are losing jobs, how can economy do well? So a negative relationship was found between lockdown and economic indicators. That's number one. But a positive relationship has been found out between lockdown and the change in economic indicators. So now we are seeing that when the lockdown is being removed, we see that slowly economy is recovering. This is your increasing trend. So now we are seeing that despite lockdown happened earlier, but now the economic indicators are improving. So the change in economic indicators is going in a positive direction. That's what we are seeing. So let me show that. A positive relationship between change in index and growth in each of the economic indicators. So if the stringency index means if the lockdown is coming down, so is the negative impact on the indicators, which means as the lockdown is coming down, your indicators are also improving. Thus the initial stringent lockdown has supported a V-shaped recovery across the states. Alright guys, so this was your volume 1, and I hope that in volume 1 you have learned chapter 1 well. We would come up with another lecture on volume 1 economic series very soon. Thank you so much.